What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again with a predicted lineup. Spurs take on Aston Villa at Villa Park, Saturday 5:30 kickoff, with it, which is absolutely imperative game in the top four race to keep up momentum. I'm here with Rez. We're going to do a predicted lineup for the game, and let's get into it. First of all, Antonio Conte has done his press conference, and there's been a bit of injury news. Let's bring on the injury graphic. Unfortunately, obviously, Jaffa Tanganga is ruled out for the rest of the season. He's obviously out. Ollie Skip has suffered a bit of a setback in his bid to be fit before the end of the season, which is a bit of a worry. But in more positive news, Ryan Sessegnon and Sergio Reguilon are fit and available for this weekend. So that's positive, isn't it, Rez?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I don't think I was alone in being worried last week that we'd have to have Emerson Royale playing. I've made no secret of my views on him. Obviously, credit where credit is due. He didn't have a bad game. But yes, I feel much more comfortable that we've got an actual left wing back to play against Villa tomorrow, rather than having to make do with a right wing back converted. Yeah,
definitely. I think we're much more comfortable with Doherty going back on the right as well. So let's get into the predicted lineup. We're going to go with a 3-4-3 formation, which obviously Spurs have been playing a lot recently. First up in goal, there's none other than Hugo Lloris. Who else is it? Yeah, look, Captain Hugo. He obviously made a mistake against Newcastle. Did you see it as a mistake? Is that what do you see it as?
Yes, but mistakes happen. That's the thing. You know, you can't legislate completely for a flawless performance. Yes, it was a mistake. I think we mentioned before as well, Lloris hasn't had a huge amount to do in recent games. You know, take the Man United game out and we've only conceded 2 in 4. So maybe rustiness, maybe, you know, he needs that sort of tension of knowing that he could be called on at any moment to sort of keep his game sharp, and that hasn't been available for him. So yeah, mistakes certainly, but obviously I still rate him very highly. I still think he's probably the best shot stopper in the league. Wow. Obviously, distribution has always been a weakness for Lloris, but I still rate him very highly. And who else are you going to play?
Exactly. Golini's probably going back to Atalanta at the end of the year, so he's not going to be picked. Next up, we have right wing back. We're going for Matt Doherty to return to his more favoured position. And obviously, Conte was in high praise for him in his press conference. And look, Doherty's been playing very, very well recently. And what do you think the big changes is with him for you?
I think a part of it will be that he's now playing in the position that he's supposed to play. He was never a right back. He was always a right wing back. That's really where he made his name at Wolves as a right wing back. And Mourinho, Mason, and most surprisingly Nuno didn't use him that way. Tried to use him as a fullback, and then he had his injury problems, and I think all of that will have knocked his confidence. Now, this isn't me sort of saying he's the most amazing right wing back in the world, and you know he's a Spurs legend or anything like that, but he's playing in the position that he's supposed to play in. And Conte has mentioned that he knuckled down and said, "I'm going to do what the manager wants," and Conte seems to have made him more effective. So it's a shoo-in right now for right wing back. Out of the choice that we have, Matt Doherty gets the call.
And it's interesting because obviously he's playing very well at the moment, Matt Doherty. And I saw a tweet the other day. It said, if the last 18 months didn't happen, it would almost not be a surprise that he's actually quite an effective wing back under Antonio Conte. Because obviously he came with a big reputation from Wolves for being a very good attacking wing back.
Absolutely.
And obviously our past 18 months has not gone in his way at all. He's been pretty dreadful. But look, as you say, if you were in a coma for 18 months and you just woke up, you know, you wouldn't know that.
You'd be happy. You'd be happy to have Matt Doherty at right wing back.
Exactly.
If you missed the last 18 months, maybe we should find a way of giving amnesia to every Spurs fan for an 18-month period, and then we'll be happy at right wing back.
Men in Black, you know, that thing from Men in Black.
The neuralizer. That's
exactly.
Right, yeah.
All right. So Doherty, we're hoping returns to right wing back on Saturday. Next to him on the right centre back position, we're going for Cuti Romero. Obviously, he's been in fine form. Another brilliant display against Newcastle. And that aggression and that proactiveness is just a breath of fresh air. And he seems to be improving game on game, doesn't he?
Absolutely. He was my man of the match at Newcastle. He was we used the term a lot, but he was an utter beast, absolutely imperious. Just never put I think he made one tiny little mistake. Other than that, didn't put a foot wrong. Controlled the Newcastle's attackers, just basically said, I'm a wall and you're not getting past me, and it was amazing.
Yeah, and he's not only just good at that, he's also on the ball, his composure, his ability. How many moves now do you see originating from Romero?
Yeah.
His ability to build from the back and his composure on the ball and a proactiveness. He's not scared about joining the attack,
No,
is he?
absolutely.
How many times do you see him in a striking position?
Absolutely, yeah.
And look, that's even more impressive from him. So obviously, look, he has to start and he has to play. Next up, we have in the centre-back position, we have Eric Dyer, who's become very, very consistent since Conte's been appointed. And obviously he's making a late bid to be in the World Cup. Was in the last England squad, but if he keeps performing the way he is, surely he's got to go to Qatar.
I think so. I'm gonna add a caveat to what you said. I actually think that Dyer was playing well before Conte arrived as well. This season, you see, we look back at last season and there were so many mistakes. There were so many weird things going on, and he had a bit of bad luck, out of form, playing some bad performances at time. This season, very little of that has transferred from last season. So I think we've got to give Dyer a lot more credit. And I've got a friend who will argue very vociferously against what I'm saying right now. But this season, put everything else aside, again, the amnesia thing, he's been good, and I think he would deserve an England call-up, definitely.
Yeah, and even at times, especially in the first half against Newcastle, he was almost like our chief creator at centre, because when everyone's so deep and there's a lack of space, him at centre-back is always going to have a bit of space, and he's spraying some lovely passes at the moment. Yeah. And I think maybe his time in midfield is helping with that aspect.
Absolutely.
Left centre-back, we're going to go with the one and only Ben Davies. No one else really to pick in that role. And there's been a lot of news, though, coming out that Spurs, their number one priority is left centre-back in the summer, and they're willing to spend very big on that. But, with the performances of Ben Davies, do you think it's more to add competition, or do you truly believe will be as an upgrade and a replacement for Davies?
If it's the players that we're talking about, the sort of your likes of De Vrij and stuff like that, then with the best will in the world, they're an upgrade on Ben Davies. I always support Ben Davies because he works hard. He never gives less than 100%, and that for me is the most important aspect of a footballer. But ability-wise, there are better players out there. So I would. My preference would be, if it is someone like that that we bring in, that person becomes the number one choice. But Ben Davies is retained as backup because he seems to play well under Conte's system, and is a hard worker. Nothing wrong with keeping him. He would be a good backup. So yeah.
And I think that his proclivity of being used to playing fullback actually helps him in this role as well.
I think so too.
Because he's a bit more comfortable on the ball. He he does foray forward a few times, and he doesn't look out of place when he's there as well.
Yep.
So I think that definitely helps him as well when he has to go in one-on-one situations when wingers attacking down that side. If say they bypass Reguilon or Sessegnon, he's more used to defending in wide areas and maybe more natural centre back. So
absolutely,
that definitely helps him. Left wing back, a bit of a decision for Conte to make. Obviously, Reguilon and Sessegnon are both fit for this game, and we've gone for Sergio Reguilon at left wing back just because of his experience, because of obviously he had the shirt before he got injured. I know Sessegnon was injured as well, but we also think his injury was a bit less serious than Sessegnon, so he gets the nod. But what's your thoughts on that? The difference between the two?
Yeah, this is probably the most difficult one to come down one side or the other, if you like, when it comes to the Spurs squad. In being able to say that one or the other is categorically better than the other. If you say, for instance, compare Doherty with Royale, most people are going to turn around and say, well, Doherty's better right now. Might not be saying much, but he's better. In terms of the central three defenders, that is the strongest lineup. You can't really argue with that one. When it comes to left wing back, it's very difficult to separate these two. You could say that Reguilon is a more developed player, but others will say that Sessegnon has a higher ceiling and plays better further forward than Reguilon does. And Reguilon is better defensively. I actually think that this might be whoever he chooses will be probably the purest tactical decision he makes tomorrow. With regard, do I want more defensive steel on the left, or do I want more attacking potency on the left tomorrow? And the decision will be made according to that.
Yeah, interesting. And we've gone for Reguilón. We think that will be the decision for him. Going into central midfield now and into the double pivot. Well, first of all, we got Rodrigo Bentancur on the right hand side, on the right of the two. Obviously, he's coming in for a lot of praise at the moment. He did have a bit of an iffy game at Old Trafford. People have pointed to that, but by and large, he's been very consistent, hasn't he, since coming into the side? And I think he just offers something in that midfield that we don't have with the other options.
I agree, and I think that he offers is incisiveness. He is not afraid to play a riskier pass that often come off. He looks to progress the ball forward more than we've had up until his arrival. This is what is, I think, unlocking the potential of our front three, because Højbjerg is sort of doing it as well. He's sort of saying, well, this guy seems to be playing forward more. I'll do that too. Not that he was, a sort of a safe player. He did sort of try and progress the ball as well. But it's sort of like, well, he's taking risks. I'm going to take risks. Screw it. Let's do it. And yeah, I've been very impressed with him. The Man United game, every player has a blip. He's new to the league. Could have been thinking, well, this is Man United. This all got excited and sort of lacked focus. Whatever the reasons are, this happens. So yeah, he's a shoo-in as well for his position. Yeah,
and I feel like he's just married that composure in the centre with a real aggression and ability to cover a lot of ground in centre mid as well, which I don't think he gets the praise for, which he should, because I think he really has, in terms of like number of tackles and interceptions he's making. He actually makes more than the likes of Skip and Højbjerg do per game, and I think because he's so composed and almost languid in his style, maybe that gets overlooked, and there's a misconception that he's just not maybe a luxury player, but he's a player who's people call him like the Berbatov of the centre midfield. Yeah. And I understand why people see him that way, but people, I think, don't give him maybe enough credit for how aggressive he is in the centre, and the amount of times he does win the ball back and stuff like that, which is a lot of times for me. Next to him, we got Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who's obviously he got dropped against Wolves a couple months back, and after a string of poor displays, but since then has really found his consistency again. I think him and Bentancur are developing a really strong partnership together, and I think every time they've started together, apart from maybe the United game, I don't think we've lost, have we, since they started together? So a really strong. He's been really strong recently, and he's back to his best, I feel.
I think so too. The thing you got to bear in mind, unless I'm mistaken, up until he was dropped, Højbjerg had played every single Premier League game since he'd been signed.
I believe you're right, yeah.
And we talk about Son being overused and Kane being overused. I think Højbjerg was overused as well, because we didn't have as many options.
And in Europe, he barely got dropped for Europe as well.
And barely got dropped for Europe as well. So maybe it was just a case of he just needed a little bit of a break, just to decompress from all the games that he's played. Obviously, they had the summer, but he was at the Euros for that as well. And so, yeah, I think it may well just be a case of he needed a little bit of a break just to decompress, and then he can come back on, firing on all cylinders, and he seems to have done that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Going into the front three now, not going to be many surprises who's in this front three, but on the right-hand side, the man who's talk of the town at the moment, Dejan Kulusevski. I mean, all three, you could argue, talk of the town, but he's obviously been brilliant since making his debut. I think at 7 goal contributions in his 8 starts as a Tottenham player. How impressed are you so far with how he's adapted at such a young age as well, 21 years of age? He's in the same age bracket as the likes of Bukayo Saka and Phil Foden and these kind of players. Yet he's really performed really strong, hasn't he, since he's come into the side?
Absolutely, and I love this guy's footballing brain. He seems to play the game, a couple of seconds ahead of everyone else, and you look at him, he's fast once he gets going, but his acceleration isn't particularly good, but he still manages to carry the ball and defend it and shield it and get past players because he's playing a couple of steps ahead of them. And that is the perfect link up for the likes of Kane, who can just, pick out passes like that, like that wonderful first time sort of almost over the shoulder ball that Kane played out to Kulusevski against Newcastle. It was just those two phenomenal talents in terms of the brain and the passing ability linking up. And yeah, Kulusevski excites me. At the age of 21, he's already got that brain, which you're just born with, really. Is sharing a Mesk almost. And so, you know, add technical ability to that. At the age of 21, he's still got a ceiling to get to. You know, I'm excited for his future. And
at such a young age, he's taken our attacking options to the next level, which is not something which I expected so early on in his Tottenham career. Obviously, up front in the central attacking position, we have none other than Harry Kane, who has obviously been absolutely fantastic form of late. And even though he hasn't scored in his last 2 games, he's got 4 assists, I believe, in his last 2 games. He's playing extremely high level. Didn't even have to score last game to get man of the match, and shows the level he's playing at and the appreciation everyone has for how he's playing, even though he's not necessarily scoring right now over the past couple of games.
No, that's right. Harry Kane should have won Player of the Season last season. There was no, I mean, you can't argue it. He won Playmaker of the Season and the Golden Boot. I mean, what more do you want him to do? Save, you know, be the Golden Gloves or something, you know? And he is at the level that he was last season now, after a slower start this season for whatever reason, which we're not going to go into. He's back to his best, I think. I think he's excited by the fact that he's got, you know, Conte managing him. They seem to be on a similar wavelength in terms of what they want for Spurs. And yeah, would love to just see him score and you know, threaten Salah for that Golden Boot.
Yeah, I mean, Salah being not off the ball, maybe performance-wise, but goals, I think is 1 goal in 8 games, I think, for Salah. So not as many goals as he has been scoring of late. So maybe there is Kane might sense a bit of blood in the water, as you say. Well, you know, he always does. Just remember that one year when he was behind Lukaku and then he scored 7 goals in his last 2, and he like blitzed it. You're like, oh, wow. So he's always capable of that, Harry Kane, you know that. And obviously on the left-hand side, we have Heung-min Son, and he's obviously back at his best as well recently. Got another goal on Sunday, which made it 9 goals in his last 9 home games. And it's quite interesting, isn't it, that, you know, before maybe the West Ham game when he's got a couple of goals, people were saying that, you know, there was a discussion whether he should be dropped, whether he was looking lethargic, whether he was looking at his best, even though he was still scoring. Obviously, with his past 2 performances now, those questions are completely banished. But what's your take on how Son has been playing of late?
Sonny's had I'd say an inconsistent season, in that there's been times where, as you say, he's looked tired, he's looked lethargic. For me, I've never doubted his talent. I've always been a massive fan of Son. My Spurs shirt has his number and name on the back. I'm a Son fan. He's Mr. Tottenham for me. My only concern hasn't been that he can't play or that he's not good enough. He's by far he's world class in my view. My only concern was he was being overused and he needed a rest. It wasn't dropping him because he doesn't deserve to play. It's dropping him so you can get a rest, so he's not burning out. Maybe he's had that. We're only playing 1 game a week at the moment, so obviously recovery time is longer. And so perhaps now he can deliver on that 1 game a week schedule and play at his top level. And he seems to be getting the goals back. So it's all good as far as I'm concerned.
Well, yeah, like 14 goals. He's actually 2 ahead of Kane in the league, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah.
And maybe he's the one who's thinking, I can chase Salah, exactly. Maybe he's thinking that. All right.
He's never had one, has he? He's never
had a golden boot. No, I mean, last season he got 17, which was probably the closest he ever came. But before then, yeah, I mean, 14, I think, is equal to his second best ever season. So, I mean, 17 is his best ever. He's got 8 games to beat that. It's looking likely he will at this point.
I think so.
Very likely. Let's hope he hits 20. Let's hope he hits his first 20.
He gets his 20, yeah.
All right, so let's just look at that lineup one more time. So we got Hugo Lloris in goal. We've got Doherty, Romero, Dyer, Davis, and Reguilon in a back 5. Bentancur and Højbjerg in the double pivot with Kulusevski, Son supporting Harry Kane. Rez, if that is the lineup, what is your score prediction?
I reckon 3-1 Spurs.
That's what I said as well.
Yeah.
That was my prediction and predict the Prem. I think, look, we have the firepower. We just got to make sure that we concentrate on ourselves. And the consistency of the aggression we're playing with at the moment and with the way Conte is managing this team, I'm sure he's not going to let as Gerard would say, don't let it slip. But but let's see how it goes. Rez, thank you for joining me as always, man. Absolute pleasure. Let us know what you think the lineup will be if you make any changes. Thank you everyone for joining us. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.